Tonight, celebrations and prayers from Gaza to Tel Aviv as phase one of a historic peace agreement between Israel and Hamas takes shape. A look at the measures needed to keep the deal alive. Plus, New York Attorney General Letitia James indicted, the charges and reaction.
Faith and fear cannot share the same space. And so today, I'm not fearful. I'm fearless.
As one by one, President Trump's political foes head to court. And a federal judge puts the brakes on a National Guard takeover in Chicago, inside the political and legal battle waging between the White House and the nation's largest cities. Our panel is with us to discuss tonight on Faith Nation. Hope tonight in Israel and Gaza as a new ceasefire takes hold. Good evening in Washington, I'm Jenna Browder. The countdown is on for dozens of Israeli hostages to finally come home. After 2 years of war, a ceasefire taking effect this afternoon, officially triggering the 72-hour window for Hamas to begin releasing hostages taken in the deadly October 7, 2023 attack. Under phase one of the deal, Hamas will release 20 living hostages and eventually return the bodies of 28 others who didn't survive. In exchange, Israel has agreed to free more than 1,000 Palestinian prisoners. In Gaza, tens of thousands of displaced Palestinians are now moving north, hoping this truce holds. And tonight, the U.S. says it's sending 200 troops to help monitor the ceasefire, part of a broader effort to keep this fragile peace on track. And for more on this, let's bring in our Faith Nation panel, Senior White House Correspondent Kelly Wright and Steve Yates, Senior Research Fellow at the Heritage Foundation. Gentlemen, welcome. So Kelly, we'll start with you. How is the White House working behind the scenes here to make sure this deal stays on track? And how confident is the president that Hamas will actually follow through?
Well, at this point, Jenna, good evening to you, by the way. The president is focusing on making sure that all 20 points of his peace plan are enacted. Of course, we're in phase one, and that, of course, is with Israeli troops pulling back to a position. And then we have 72 hours for the hostages to be released, Hamas doing its part. And then it gets into the thorny part, and that is making sure that Hamas disarms. That is something that's very important to the president, as well as to the Arab leaders, I should say, operating in the Middle East as they oversee this plan as well. And not to mention Bibi Netanyahu and the Israeli cabinet. This is a concern that they have. Many of them are not happy with the fact that 250 known terrorists convicted of terrorism are being released in exchange for all of this to be transacted. But look, the president has worked very hard behind the scenes. He continues to do so with Steve Witkoff still in the area, as well as Jared Kushner, making sure that all of the important issues are done and that Hamas or even Israel will not cause any impediments by breaking some aspect of this deal. So the president continues to put his quiet pressure on that, peace through strength, and he is not taking his eyes off of that. He is scheduled to fly over there to actually be part of the process and to actually welcome home the hostages when they are returned.
Yeah, it's remarkable how he was able to really get all of these players to the table. Steve, from your perspective, how fragile is this ceasefire and what are the biggest risks within these next 72 hours?
Well, I would take nothing away from the work and just the dogged determination that the president and his team exhibited in getting us to where we are. And I also think that this is on the foundation of the historic Abraham Accords of his first term, and that framework of collaboration with Arab neighbors, I think, is going to be key in trying to hold what I would think is a fragile peace. Hamas is a terrorist organization. We are at the beginning of a process of seeing whether they will honor the agreement and returning all remaining hostages, whether they will abide by laying down their arms, and what kind of a new governance structure will emerge in the Palestinian area. And I think that that is really the toughest of tasks. But the hardest part is to begin. And the president deserves immense credit for getting people to commit to this beginning phase. And hopefully all allies, and maybe even some of the critics along the way, will now put their spade and do some of the constant gardening required to keep peace.
Yeah, and we're talking about future government, Steve. The plan for Gaza, it calls to be governed by an apolitical Palestinian committee with Trump himself as the chairman. Your thoughts on that structure, Steve, and how is it being perceived in the region there?
Well, it's a different kind of structure. Of course, the United States has been through some post-war government collaboration exercises. Many of them are not happy. If you look at what we did with Iraq and Afghanistan, some good done, but a lot of headaches that came along the way. And I trust all of the president's team are seeking to avoid the mistakes that we know from those experiences. But this is one of the hardest things. The Palestinian people have been led by the likes of Yasser Arafat, which did not lead to peace and prosperity. They've gone through a period of a Palestinian Authority that allowed for Hamas to go through rogue elections, to have influence. And so really we're looking for uncharted territory for what kind of an entity might hold this in place. And of course, the president wants to make sure that he has skin in the game to nudge things in the right direction. But really, again, I'd go back to real stakeholders in the region. And one of the core principles of Trumpism is that our allies closest to challenges that impinge upon their interests take their share of risk and responsibility. And I expect us to see that in this.
Yeah. Kelly, there was another peace deal of sorts taking place behind the scenes today. First Lady Melania Trump saying today that she's been in talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin. What do we know about the nature of those conversations, Kelly, and what was the First Lady, what has she been able to achieve so far?
Well, look, she made that announcement today here at the White House in the Grand Foyer, and it's unprecedented with what she's been able to do. She has been in contact with the Russian President Vladimir Putin, opening up lines of communication by initiating it in terms of writing a letter to him, and he in turn returned and reciprocated that. Well, they have been working on helping the children, the most vulnerable in this war between Ukraine and Russia. The First Lady going on to say, hopefully we can get to peace, and it starts with the children. She's been helping to convince Vladimir Putin to release some of the Ukrainian children that have been taken into Russia. Some of them are minors and then turning 18 years of age. And she is making progress, giving the information to reporters today that just within the last 24 hours, 8 Ukrainian children have been returned home. She will continue to work on this and try to find peace by actually looking at the most vulnerable of the population, and that would be the children. Yeah. So it was really surprising and unprecedented in terms of what she's been able to accomplish thus far, and we'll continue to follow the developments of that.
Yeah, it's a huge deal. They believe somewhere around 20,000 kids have been kidnapped. Many believe it's actually much higher than that. So
much higher.
It's nice to see at least 8 reunited. All right, Kelly and Steve, thank you. Steve, thanks for being with us. Kelly, you're going to stick around for more on the other side of the break. And coming up, another indictment shakes Washington, the charges, the politics, and the fallout when Faith Nation returns. Welcome back. Another legal fight is unfolding between President Trump and one of his top critics. New York Attorney General Letitia James indicted in a mortgage fraud case. The charges pushed by the Trump administration. James had previously brought a $500 million fraud case against Trump and his family. Now she is the one facing charges. She says this is political and accuses Trump of using the justice system to go after his legal enemies. To break down this and other top headlines, let's bring in our panel. Senior White House correspondent Kelly Wright is with us again, and Nathan Gonzalez, editor and publisher of Inside Elections and a Faith Nation contributor. So the indictment alleges that James, in 2020, signed documents that required her to occupy and use a 3-bedroom home in Norfolk, Virginia as her secondary residence. She was also prohibited from renting the property. These pledges then allowed her to obtain favorable loan terms not available to rental properties. But according to the DOJ, James did in fact rent out the home to a family of 3. So it's a little bit in the weeds there, but James, she has called the charges baseless. This is a quote, "This is nothing more than a continuation of the president's desperate weaponization of our justice system. The prosecutor in the case, we should add, was stating in the document that no one is above the law. Nathan, to you first, your reaction to these charges that were brought against AG Letitia James.
Well, one of the president's superpowers is convincing people that something like this is normal. And what I mean by that is, I know people may not agree with the cases that have been brought against President Trump or people in his orbit, but there's no evidence of President Biden directly messaging the Attorney General asking for an indictment. This is in the case of Trump to Attorney General Pam Bondi about James Comey, or the President Biden firing and hiring U.S. attorneys searching for someone to indict a political opponent. So this isn't normal. Now, if you're hearing a couple of terms and if you hear weaponization of the legal system, that means that is a legal case brought against you. If you hear it's just justice, then that is a legal case against your opponent. And so these terms are getting thrown around a lot. And in general, if someone is doing something wrong, there should be consequences. But there's frustration on the Democratic side that when people are convicted of things that are being done wrong, whether it's President Trump, that there are no consequences, or when there are convictions among other people that they are pardoned by President Trump if they happen to be one of his supporters. So this is unprecedented times that we're in.
Yeah, we should mention this was the grand jury was in Northern Virginia, in Alexandria, Virginia. Kelly, your thoughts on the Letitia James indictment, as well as the indictment of former FBI Director James Comey, who's accused of making false statements to Congress and obstruction of a congressional proceeding.
So look, let's make a fair observance of all of this. When President Trump was indicted by Letitia James, let's keep in mind that she ran for New York Attorney General on the campaign promise that she would prosecute then President Donald Trump. And then you look at this overall situation, here we are now. Elections have consequences, and while we're talking about lawfare and weaponization of justice, and the president did tweet something out or posted on Truth Social a couple of weeks ago to Pam Bondi as Attorney General about James Comey, the former FBI director, and Letitia James, the New York Attorney General. Now both of them are under indictment and facing charges. They're of course talking about their innocence. You have to remember that Donald Trump said the same thing. They was talking about his innocence and about weaponization, about lawfare. And so here we are in this strange environment where this kind of lawfare, or whatever you want to call it, or seeking justice is going on. To the president, he believes that both are facing the music now and facing trials, and this is a man who went through the system, and he believes it's now their turn, and he says this is the right way to pursue this. We will see what happens in a court of law now.
Yeah. On Capitol Hill, the government shutdown is in day 10. Lawmakers are still locked in a stalemate. Kelly, what's the White House saying about all of that tonight? Any sense of any movement?
No movement at this point. The White House is still stating, along with Speaker of the House Mike Johnson, that the Democrats have to get to the table and agree to a clean CR, continuing resolution. That is just, I mean, they actually handed it to the Democrats, and the Democrats are basically stating that they're fighting for the health care of 60 million plus Americans. So this back and forth continues, and the people who are hurting through all of this process are the American people. I asked the president on Monday in the Oval Office, I asked him, what's your message to the American people in terms of the pain that they are going to experience? And he responded to me saying the pain isn't being felt yet, but he would say to the American people to hang in there.
Yeah. Nathan, while I still have you here, I want to talk about the National Guard troops in some of the biggest cities in the United States. The city of Chicago was handed a victory, a federal judge ruling President Trump exceeded his authority by sending the Guard in to quell demonstrations outside of ICE facilities there. Portland now hoping for a similar ruling. Nathan, just your reaction to all of this, and do you think we see this continue, though? The White House is very busy. Do you think it continues down this track, too?
I think it's going to continue. It's clearly a strategy that the White House is in favor of in terms of using everything at their disposal in order to tamp down on crime, specifically in bigger cities. But I thought it was interesting the perspective of Republican Governor Kevin Stitt of Oklahoma, who talked about how if J.B. Pritzker, the Democratic governor of Illinois, were sending Illinois National Guard troops to Oklahoma, how the residents of Oklahoma would be up in arms. And I think that that's an important perspective on this, that it's not just, the National Guard in D.C., which is a federal district, but it's sending troops from one state to another state that doesn't want that, and it is, once again, a place that we haven't really been. The National Guard has been used, particularly in the civil rights era, but that was usually, the Arkansas National Guard in Arkansas, or Alabama National Guard in Alabama. But this cross-state National Guard is really a very different situation.
Okay, gentlemen, we have to leave it there. It's always good to see you. Thank you. Have a great weekend. Kelly and Nathan, thank you. And up next, a college student with a big heart and a toolkit for tiny arms and legs. See how broken dolls are bringing comfort to girls in crisis. Welcome back. For many little girls, dolls are a treasured part of growing up. But for one young woman, receiving a broken doll as a gift sparked something much bigger. CBN's Wendy Griffith shows us how that moment grew into a ministry, bringing hope to girls in crisis around the world.
18-year-old Leah Barkas, a Regent University student from Fredericksburg, Virginia, was gifted Samantha, her first American Girl doll, when she was just 11. The only problem, Samantha, a used doll, had a loose leg.
So I was like, well, how do you fix that? How do you fix your dolls when they're broken or have something wrong with them?
Fortunately, Leah had a friend who collected dolls and restored them.
So she brought over a couple of her dolls and we worked on them, and I was like, this is really neat.
That's when she got the idea to start Joy Doll Hospital, where she takes used American Girl dolls, restores them, and gives them to girls in need.
I can repair dolls, that have been well-loved and gift that to girls less fortunate that may not have a chance to get one or that would need that hope and that joy.
Today, well-loved American Girl dolls are donated from all over the country.
Here she is.
And here's the doll.
She's in good shape, too.
So she's got
all her limbs.
Her limbs are all loose, so that's what needs tightened and fixed up.
The day of our interview, I helped Leah open several boxes, many packed with not just used dolls, but colorful clothes and accessories.
Ooh, there's some little
stickers,
accessories.
Oh, look at that. Oh, pearls. Pearls.
And behind each unique doll, a desire to put a once cherished doll into the arms of a young girl who needs to know she's not alone.
This one says, I am glad I found you. My girls are grown and moved away, and we got this American Girl doll as a hand-me-down from my niece many years ago. My oldest daughter was kind of into dolls, so she decided to donate it to Joy Doll Hospital.
One young girl, so moved by the mission of Joy Doll Hospital, went even further.
She had a cow that she raised, and she sold the cow, and the funds from the cow she donated to Joy Doll Hospital, and she sent us a little note. And that was so amazing to see.
And she didn't even want a doll for herself.
No, she was like, I raised this cow, and the money's going to go to you.
Thanks to Joy Doll Hospital, many young victims of Hurricane Helene received dolls, following some of the worst flash flooding to hit the Southeast. About 40 dolls also made their way to refugee camps in Ukraine to help little girls dealing with the ongoing war there. Unfortunately, Leah usually doesn't get to deliver the dolls personally.
We are catering to these kids who do have to be in safe places or removed from their homes or different situations they're in, and you can't, directly meet them or interact with them. But I've come to realize that's okay because God knows what's happening in their life.
Before shipping them out, each doll gets a thorough cleaning, tightening any loose limbs or parts, washing and brushing the hair, plus what Leah calls the fun part.
So a lot of it's kind of like fashion design. It's like, okay, which outfit's gonna look good on this doll? I like to match the eye color, and that's the fun part. It's designing, picking out what's being given.
The whole process can take up to 10 hours, depending on the doll's condition, and Leah says each doll is prayed over. As for naming the dolls, she leaves that to the new owners.
We actually give the girls a certificate. So every certificate has a line they can name their own doll. They can write in the eye color, the hair color, and then it has little rules about how to take care of the hair and the doll itself. So we give each of them we call it a new birth certificate.
Each doll comes with extra outfits, accessories like a hairbrush, a mini Bible, and a story of how Jesus restores us.
That's the message that we're sending them. Just like your doll is broken and is restored through restoration and, fixing up the toy, this is also a correlation to how Jesus Christ restores us as human beings.
Since Joy Doll Hospital began 6 years ago, Leah estimates nearly 400 restored dolls have been given away, and she wants to expand in order to reach as many girls in crisis as possible.
So we're gonna open it up.
This new trailer will help by allowing them to take Joy Doll Hospital on the road.
It's going to be the Joy Doll trailer, and we'll keep like the dresses and stuff that's donated in there, and it can be a mobile thing as well, and we can take it to events and different things. So we're very excited for that as well.
She says her biggest and best surprise is seeing the joy, both from the girls receiving the dolls and those who give them.
There was a 104-year-old woman, and she sewed doll clothes. I would visit her, and she actually sew a bunch of clothes, and she would donate them to Joy Doll Hospital. You never know who's going to come in with whatever story they've brought along in their life and add to the bigger story and the big picture of God's work in this.
Wendy Griffith, CBN News, Fredericksburg, Virginia.
And still ahead, a furry music aficionado is becoming a social media star. Next on Faith Nation. Finally tonight, a collection of viral videos shows just how much our pets can appreciate music. Kara Baldus-Merriman is a professional jazz pianist and professor in St. Louis, but it's her dog that's actually stealing the spotlight. Kara's 13-year-old Westie Mix, named Bradford, enjoys the sound of the piano just as much as she does. She started recording him, closing his eyes while listening to the music. It started back in 2020 during the lockdown when Kara was teaching lessons from home. She found that Bradford preferred a front row seat right in her lap.
I would just stay there during my lesson, sit on my lap, and he would sit there for hours and hours. He seems to react in real time to certain elements of the music, which is just wild.
That's really cute. Kara says Bradford also appreciates other genres of music, but jazz does seem to be his favorite. He's a happy little guy. That's adorable. Well, that's going to do it for Faith Nation. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great night and a great weekend. We'll see you back here on Monday.